I used to tell people my hair was just easy. That was the polite way of saying I'd given up on it years ago. Nobody warns you that the haircut you've had since 1998 might be the exact reason strangers guess your age 5 years high. Today I'm walking you through 5 haircuts that genuinely make women over 50 look younger. Not trendy, not high maintenance, just smart cuts that work with your face, your texture, and your real life. I researched the worst style and beauty mistakes and the best fixes for women over 50 so you get real results, fast. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every week. Part 1. The layered lob. Here's something most women never hear from their stylist. Hair that hangs one uniform length past a certain age doesn't read as sleek anymore. It reads as heavy. Flat, weighted down hair pulls the whole face downward with it. You've felt this. You've stood in front of the mirror, pulled your hair back and thought, when did my hair start looking so tired? It's not your hair getting worse. It's gravity working against a length that no longer has any movement built into it. The fix is the layered lob, a length that hits between the chin and the collarbone, cut with layers starting around the cheekbone. Here's exactly what to say in the chair. I want a lob that hits just above my collarbone, with face framing layers starting at my cheekbones, and long layers through the back for movement. That phrasing matters. A stylist hears long layers through the back, and knows you don't want choppy, chunky pieces. You want soft transitions. Why this specific length works? It sits right at the point where hair naturally wants to flip outward instead of straight down, which lifts everything above it. Your cheekbones, your jawline, your eyes. The layers around your face catch light differently than one flat sheet of hair does. And that light movement is what reads as youthful in photos and in person. Heavy, one-length hair absorbs light. Layered hair reflects it. That's the entire secret, and it's optical, not magical. Here's the part that surprises people. This cut also solves a texture problem most women over 50 don't even realize they have. Hair thins from the ends first, long before it thins at the root. A blunt, one-length cut shows every bit of that thinning because there's nothing to break it up. Layers redistribute where the eye lands, so thinner ends get camouflaged by the fuller layers above them. The snapback moment. Women who make this switch tell me the same thing almost every time. People start guessing their age lower without a single other change. Not new makeup, not new clothes. Just this cut. That's how much weight your hairline and jaw framing carry and how old you read to a stranger meeting you for the first time. Maintenance is simple, which is exactly why this cut works for real life, and not just for the salon photo. A trim every 8 to 10 weeks keeps the layers sharp. Let it go longer, and the whole shape softens back into that same flat weight you started with. At home, you're working with your hair while it's damp, using your fingers to encourage the ends outward rather than straight down, then letting it air dry or diffuse on low heat. Let's talk about the before and after here, because it's specific. Before, hair past the shoulder, one length, no layering, hanging straight down past the jaw and pulling the whole face with it. After, a chin to collarbone lob with cheekbone level face framing layers, ends flipping outward, light catching through the crown. Same woman. Completely different first impression. But the lob isn't right for every face, and there's a haircut right after this one that a lot of women over 50 are still wearing that's doing the exact opposite of what they think it's doing, quietly aging them out in the front while they focus on everything else. Part 2. The soft curtain fringe. Most women over 50 think bangs are a young woman's game. Too much upkeep, too easy to mess up, too risky for a face that's already changed shape. That belief is costing them one of the single most effective youth-restoring cuts that exists, and it's not the bangs you're picturing. I'm not talking about a blunt, straight-across fringe cut tight to the brow. I'm talking about a soft curtain fringe, longer pieces that part in the center and sweep outward past the temples, blending into the rest of your hair instead of standing apart from it. This is a completely different animal than the fringe you're picturing, and it solves a problem almost nobody talks about directly. Forehead length increases with age as the hairline naturally recedes just slightly, and that added forehead real estate ages the whole face before anyone even looks at your eyes or mouth. Here's the exact chair language. I want a soft curtain fringe parted in the center, blended into my layers, long enough to tuck behind my ears if I want to. That last part is the insurance policy. It tells your stylist to cut it long enough that you're never locked into styling it one specific way every single morning. The mechanism here is about proportion, not concealment. A curtain fringe doesn't hide your forehead the way a blunt fringe does. It shortens the visual distance between your hairline and your eyebrows by breaking up that expanse with soft, face-hugging pieces. Shorter visual distance between hairline and brow reads as younger in every study on facial perception that's ever been done on this, because it's literally the proportion a younger face naturally has. You're not disguising anything. You're recreating a proportion. The snapback most women describe, their eyes look bigger. Not through makeup, not through a different brow shape. The curtain fringe frames the eye area so directly that it becomes the first thing people notice, before they register anything else about the face. That's the whole point of face framing hair. It directs attention exactly where you want it, and away from where you don't. Upkeep is genuinely low. And this is where the curtain fringe earns its reputation as the low-maintenance secret nobody advertises. Because the pieces are longer and swept to the side rather than blunt and centered. You're not fighting a hard line that needs daily precision. A quick pass with a round brush while blow-drying, or even just finger styling while damp, gets it into place. It also grows out gracefully. There's no awkward in-between stage the way there is with a blunt fringe, because the length was never short enough to create one. Let's name the before and after directly. Before. Full, exposed forehead, hairline pulled back or parted flat down the middle with nothing softening the transition into the face. After, soft center-parted curtain layers sweeping past the temples, framing the eyes, shortening that visual gap between hairline and brow. There's one more cut coming up that works almost the opposite way. Instead of framing the face with softness, it does something much bolder, and it's the one most women are terrified to ask for, even though it might be the most flattering cut on this entire list. Part 3. The modern shag. Here's a fact that surprises almost every woman I talk to. The haircut most stylists privately recommend for volume-starved, fine hair over 50 is also the one most women are too scared to ask for, because they associate it with the 1970s. I'm talking about the shag, but not the vintage version. The modern shag, cut specifically for finer, more mature hair. You know this feeling. You wash your hair, it looks full for about 20 minutes, and by midday it's lying flat against your scalp again. No matter what product you used. That's not a product problem. That's a cut problem. One length or minimally layered hair has nothing built into the structure to create lift, so no amount of mousse or dry shampoo can manufacture volume that the cut itself isn't set up to hold. The modern shag is built entirely around solving this. Exact chair language. I want a modern shag, shorter, disconnected layers through the crown for volume, with softer, longer layers underneath, and a bit of texture at the end so it doesn't look too uniform. The word disconnected is doing real work in that sentence. It tells the stylist you want layers cut at varying angles rather than one smooth gradient, which is what actually creates lift at the root. Here's the mechanism, and it's purely structural. Short, disconnected layers at the crown physically weigh less than the hair around them, so they stand up and away from the scalp instead of lying flat under the weight of longer pieces. That lift at the crown is the single biggest visual signal of thick, healthy hair. More than length, more than color, more than shine. Volume at the root is what people register first. Even if they couldn't tell you why a head of hair looks young versus tired. The snapback here is immediate and physical, not just social. Women tell me their hair suddenly feels lighter, easier to style, faster to dry, less flat by 2 p.m. That's not a coincidence. Shorter layers dry faster because there's less hair mass holding water at the root, which means less time under heat and less daily damage, which compounds into healthier looking hair over months, not just better volume on day one. There's a real anecdote I think about often here. A woman wrote to me after getting this exact cut and said her granddaughter, meeting her for a weekend visit, walked in and said, "Grandma, your hair looks so cool. Not nice, not pretty, cool." That's the specific word a teenager uses for something that reads as current, not dated. That's the modern shag doing exactly what it's built to do. Maintenance-wise, this is where texture products earn their keep. A lightweight texturizing spray at the root, worked in with fingers while hair is mostly dry, keeps that crown lift going through the day without weighing it back down. Trims every 8 weeks keep the disconnection crisp, because grown-out shag layers slowly blend back into one length and lose the exact structure that creates the lift. Before and after, named precisely. Before, flat crown, minimal layering, hair lying close to the scalp with no root lift, requiring constant product just to hold shape for a few hours. After, short, disconnected crown layers with longer texture underneath, visible lift at the root, light movement through the ends. I'll admit something before we move to the next one. This next cut is my personal favorite on this entire list, and it's the one I get the most emotional messages about. Part 4. The soft pixie with length on top. Short hair has a reputation problem. Somewhere along the way, getting a pixie became code for giving up. And that idea has talked more women out of their most flattering possible cut than almost any other beauty myth I know. The truth about a well-cut pixie is the opposite of giving up. It's one of the highest precision cuts that exists, and precision is exactly what reads as intentional and put together rather than aged. The version I want you asking for isn't a close-cropped, uniform pixie. It's a soft pixie with length left on top. Enough length through the crown to style with texture and movement, kept short and close through the sides and back. This distinction matters enormously, and it's the difference between a cut that ages a face and one that completely resets it. Exact chair language for this. I want a soft pixie, short and close at the sides and nape, but leave 3 to 4 inches of length through the top, so I can add texture and movement. I don't want it cropped tight all over. That sentence protects you from the number 1 pixie regret. A cut that's uniformly short everywhere, which can read severe on a mature face instead of soft. The mechanism is about drawing the eye upward and outward, away from anything you're less confident about along the jaw or neck, and directly toward your eyes and cheekbones. Length and texture through the crown create a soft, lifted shape that frames the upper face beautifully, while the short sides eliminate any bulk or weight around the jawline that could otherwise read as heavy. It's the single most face-lifting haircut on this list, purely through where it places volume. Here's the surprising part almost nobody expects. Short hair photographs younger than long hair on a mature face consistently. Long hair on an older face can pull features downward, and can visually compete with the neck and jawline in ways that add years. A well-cut pixie does neither. It sits close where mature skin needs softness and adds movement exactly where a lifted, youthful look needs it, right at the crown and around the eyes. The snapback on this one is consistent across nearly every woman who makes the switch. People stop commenting on her hair and start commenting on her face, her eyes, her cheekbones, her skin. That's the tell that a haircut is working exactly as it should, when it stops being the subject and starts being the frame. Maintenance is refreshingly minimal once you get past the mental hurdle of short hair. A trim every 4 to 6 weeks keeps the shape sharp, since a pixie grows out faster than any other cut on this list simply because there's less length to absorb the change. At home, a small amount of texturizing paste worked through damp hair at the crown, then air-dried or diffused, is genuinely the entire routine. Before and after, stated plainly. Before, shoulder-length hair with no shape at the crown, weight pulling down around the jaw and neck. After, a soft textured pixie, short and close at the sides, longer and lifted through the top, framing the eyes and cheekbones directly. One haircut left, and it might be the most quietly powerful one on this entire list, because it's not about cutting length off at all. It's about what you do with the length you keep. Part 5. Long layers with face framing pieces. If you love your length and nothing on this list so far has convinced you to cut it off, here's the good news nobody tells long-haired women over 50. You don't have to. The 5th haircut on this list keeps every inch of length you want. It just changes how that length is cut, and that single shift transforms it from aging to youthful. Long hair on a mature face gets blamed for aging a woman when the real culprit is almost always the same thing: a lack of face framing layers. Length isn't the problem. Uniform, unshaped length is the problem. Hair that's simply long, with no layers cut into the front, pulls straight down along the jaw with nothing to break that downward line. And that unbroken vertical pull is what reads as tired rather than the length itself. Here's exactly what to request. I want to keep my length, but add long, face-framing layers starting around my chin, with softer layers blended through the rest for movement. Nothing choppy, just enough shaping to create some lift and softness around my face. This phrasing keeps your stylist from taking off more length than you want while still solving the actual structural problem. The mechanism is nearly identical to the lob from earlier in this video, just applied to longer hair. Face framing layers starting around the chin catch light, and movement right where your eyes and cheekbones are, pulling visual attention upward and outward instead of letting the whole head of hair act as one heavy downward sheet. The rest of the length stays exactly as long as you want it. You're not sacrificing anything. You're just giving your stylist permission to shape the front the way they'd shape any other flattering cut. The snapback women describe most with this one is about ease, not just appearance. Face framing layers on long hair fall into place with far less effort than a blunt one-length cut, because the shorter pieces around the face naturally curve inward or outward with minimal styling. Less time with a hot tool, less frustration in the morning, and a softer result even on the days you don't style it at all. There's a specific anecdote that captures this perfectly. A woman told me she'd kept the same waist length, blunt cut hair for over a decade because she was terrified layers would mean losing length she'd worked years to grow. She finally asked for exactly the language above. Length kept, face framing layers added, and said it was the first time in 10 years a stranger complimented her hair, without also asking if she was thinking about doing something different with it. The length was never the issue. The shape was. Maintenance stays simple, which matters when you've committed to keeping serious length. A trim every 10 to 12 weeks keeps the face framing pieces sharp without sacrificing overall length. And the softer blended layers through the rest of the hair mean split ends are less visually obvious between trims than they'd be on one uniform length. Before and after, named exactly. Before, long one-length hair with a blunt cut and no shaping around the face, pulling straight down along the jaw. After, the same length kept intact with long face framing layers starting at the chin, softness and movement built in around the cheekbones and eyes. 5 cuts, 5 completely different approaches, and every single one built around the same idea. The right shape does more for how young you look than length, color, or product ever could. You now know 5 specific haircuts and the exact words to use in the chair to ask for each one. The layered lob, the soft curtain fringe, the modern shag, the soft pixie with length on top, and long layers with face framing pieces. Any one of these can change how a stranger reads your age in the first 3 seconds of meeting you. That's not vanity. That's just how much shape matters. Which one of these 5 are you most tempted to try? Or has your stylist already talked you into one of them? Tell me in the comments. Next week, I'm covering the haircuts that are quietly adding years without you realizing it. The ones nobody warns you about. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom Path, and I'll see you in the next one.